Well, good evening, friends. Let us be still for a moment, just long enough to notice the presence already here. Nobody taught you the true meaning of seek first the kingdom of God, because the kingdom cannot be taught. It must be discovered within. From childhood, we learn to seek results, to chase solutions, even to pursue spiritual experiences out there. But seek first is not a hunt, it is a turning. It is the quiet pivot from the noise of the outer to the living center inside you, where the kingdom is not promised. It is present. When you begin there, life rearranges itself, supply becomes flow rather than struggle, guidance emerges as a gentle nudge, relationships harmonize without your forcing. We are not gathered to polish the human picture. We are here to witness the presence that makes fixing unnecessary. Tonight I invite you to a different kind of seeking, not reaching, but resting, not pleading, but perceiving, not trying to bring God to a problem, but letting awareness of God dissolve the sense of a problem. In a few moments, I will share one inner shift, simple, quiet, immediate, that can turn that ancient line from a slogan into a doorway you can walk through. If this resonates, like the video, subscribe, and drop 111 in the comments to affirm, I begin within. Stay with me, because the place we're about to look is so close, most people miss it. The kingdom is not a location on a map, nor a prize waiting at the end of moral striving. It is a quality of awareness, present now. When the Master said, seek first the kingdom, he was not pointing you toward a shrine, a ritual, or a distant future. He was pointing you to the place in you that is prior to thought and untouched by circumstance, the quiet eye of your being. The reason nobody taught you this is that it can't be handed down as information. It must be recognized the way you recognize light, by opening your eyes, not by learning a description of the sun. Within does not mean inside the body, it means within consciousness. The awareness by which you know a body, a room, a world. You cannot walk to it, earn it, or import it from a teacher. You can only stop outsourcing God to mountains and meetings and let the presence disclose itself as your very life. Notice even now the fact of being, the simple aliveness that remains when you set aside the labels of age, role, success, or failure. That effortlessness is the doorway. It is not dramatic, and so the mind ignores it. But from that quiet center, the qualities we call peace, assurance, and harmony arise without strain. Think of a radio. The program is already on the air. Turning the dial doesn't create the music, it brings you into alignment with what is broadcasting. So too with the kingdom. We are not summoning God. We are tuning attention to the frequency of what eternally is. When attention abides there, fear loses its authority, because you discover there is no second power contending with the one. Problems begin to reclassify themselves as misperceptions, static on the dial, dissolving as you rest in the awareness behind them. Do not mistake thinking about God for living in God. Concepts are useful like road signs, but no one eats the sign and calls it bread. For the lived kingdom is tasted in silence, in the pause before you react, in the gentle willingness to stop arguing with appearances and to feel the presence that is closer than breath. Let the mind do nothing for a moment. Let it be like a window, not a billboard. The light passes through by itself. What comes through is guidance, not as commands, but as a rightness, a natural unfolding that requires less pushing and more trust. This is why seeking first is not a moral order, but an ontological one. Begin in what is real, and let effects take their right shape. Begin in awareness, and watch your doing acquire the fragrance of being. Begin with the kingdom within, and the outer proves to be a mirror, not a master. You discover that you are not a separated self trying to reach God. You are awareness through which God is revealing God, and from that center, the day arranges itself according to a wisdom you do not have to invent. In practice, this means pausing often, letting attention sink beneath the noise of the head into the felt sense of I, and allowing that awareness to frame every email, meal, and meeting. You neither chase nor resist. Listen, and what needs doing appears as the next step naturally. Turning within first is not withdrawal from life. It is establishing the center from which life becomes intelligible. Before the email, the negotiation, the diagnosis make the inner contact. A moment of still recognition is more causative than hours of anxious motion. You are not trying to bring a presence to your affairs. You are acknowledging the presence as your life and allowing affairs to take their cues from that. When the root is watered, the leaves do not argue about greenness. They simply express it. In the same way, when you rest in the felt awareness of I, your actions, words, and timing rise as an outflow, and the outer scene takes on order because it is being moved by order. To the human sense, this looks like coincidence, favor, luck. In truth, it is law, grace as law, not compulsion but naturalness. You will notice that delays become protection, refusals redirect into better doors, and what seemed urgent proves unnecessary. Turning within first breaks the hypnosis that says appearances dictate your peace. Appearances report, they do not govern. Let the report be what it is, but let authority remain where it belongs in the realized presence. From that place you do not manage outcomes, you witness unfoldment. Practice it in small things. Before you answer a text, pause and feel the quiet aliveness. Before spending money, rest inwardly until the sense of enoughness replaces the tale of lack. Before you correct a loved one, listen to the presence and see if the correction is yours to give or if love can do its own correcting. These moments are not delays, they are alignments. 5 sacred seconds can save 5 chaotic hours. The world will call this inefficiency, the spirit calls it obedience to reality. As the habit forms, you find that you are moving through your day with fewer detours, because your steps are ordered from within. Do not make the mistake of turning within to get a thing. Turn within to know God, and let things reveal their rightful place. If you secretly try to use God as a lever on the world, you have placed the world first and made the within a tool. The kingdom is not utility, it is identity. Seek the kingdom for its own sake, and all these things add themselves as byproducts, not trophies. This keeps the heart clean and the hands light. You will give more freely because you are not depending on effects to tell you who you are. You will act more courageously because you are not taking counsel of fear's calendar. As you abide in this firstness, outer disorder begins to recompose itself without your pushing. Some relationships fall away quietly, let them. Some tasks that once consumed you lose their urgency. Bless them and release them. Some doors open with no knocking at all, walk through them without boasting, for it is not personal victory, but the rhythm of the one appearing as timing and right placement. Turning within first is not a step in a method. It is the atmosphere in which every step becomes clear, not by planning but by perceiving, not by pressure but by presence, as if the day were already written on your heart and you were simply learning to read it. As you learn to read it, you begin to see there are not 2 forces contending for your day. The pressure and fatigue of human living arise from the belief in 2 powers, a good to be chased and an evil to be outrun. The instant you grant reality to a second power, you leave the kingdom and re-enter anxiety. In the quiet within-ness, you find one presence, one power, one life, and with that recognition comes the relief of not having to fight your way through appearances. A shadow cannot bruise you. It can only frighten you if you treat it as substance. So it is with every condition that parades as threat, lack, or sin. We are not asked to wrestle shadows. We are asked to wake to the light that nullifies their seeming. The screen is never cut by the sword, play in the film. It remains untouched, bearing and outlasting every scene. Consciousness is that screen. When you know this, you stop pleading with God to fix a picture and rest in God as the reality behind the picture. Do not interpret this as denial of the world. It is denial of a second authority. Appearances are to be acknowledged but not enthroned. When a report arrives, medical, financial, relational, let it report. But let God remain God, say nothing magical, simply be still until the felt sense of oneness re-establishes itself. In that recognition, fear loses oxygen and action, if any, arises cleanly, without the tremor of self-preservation. Sometimes the action is practical and precise. Sometimes the action is silence. In both cases, it is not your will pushing against an enemy. It is the effortless rightness of one presence fulfilling itself. The belief in two powers hides in subtle places. We grant power to time as if delay could prevent fulfillment. We grant power to persons as if a boss or partner could block our good. We grant power to matter as if dollars or medicines were sources rather than channels. Bring every such attribution back to the altar. Only God is source, all else is appearance and instrument, valuable in its place but without independent authority. When the cord of misplaced power is unplugged, channels flow more freely because you are no longer gripping them. Resist not evil does not excuse passivity. It ends the hypnosis that makes evil appear equipped with reality. Resistance is agreement in disguise. It says, you are real enough to fight. Recognition says, you have no law, no substance, no origin in the one. From that altitude, compassion naturally replaces condemnation, because you are no longer terrified by the forms error takes. You can meet a troubled person without making them an enemy, a symptom without making it a tyrant, a bill without making it a god. If you find fear rising, treat it as a bell, not a verdict. Don't rush to affirmations like bandages. Sit, breathe, and feel after the presence that was here before the feeling, is here during it, and remains when it passes. Even a minute of clear awareness can unmask the suggestion that there is another power acting. What remains is a quiet authority that directs you to call, to move, to rest, to forgive, to wait, each instruction bearing the seal of peace rather than compulsion. This is spiritual safety, not fences against enemies, but the discovery that the field is one. In that one, you live and move and have your being, and every so-called other power is reduced to a claim without claimant, a sound without source, a wave with no ocean other than the ocean itself, and from that same ocean you learn the nature of supply. A wave does not carry its own private reservoir, its fullness is the ocean's self-expression. Supply is like that, spiritual flow, not personal accumulation. The human habit is to fence the water, to label it mine, and then to fear evaporation. But spirit does not parcel itself into private accounts. It reveals as enoughness in the moment, renewing as you need, the way breath arrives without storage. The pattern of grace is circulation. When you seek to stockpile security, you signal to yourself that the source is intermittent. When you recognize source as present being, the flow proves itself dependable because it is not dependent on your gripping. This is why forms of supply come and go without threatening your good. The client, the job, the market, the inheritance, each is a channel, none is the source. When you mistake a channel for the source, fear enters because you have given authority to something that by nature is changing. Bring your gaze back to the invisible where cause resides. Thank channels, bless them, steward them, but do not worship them. Gratitude belongs to God, not to the vessel. Then if one channel closes, you are not broken, you are redirected, and the river finds another bed. In practice, let every financial moment become an altar. Before you check the balance, acknowledge the presence that is balance. Before you pay a bill, pause and feel the inner sufficiency that is not measured in digits. Sign your name as a blessing, not a complaint. When an unexpected expense arises, refuse the reflex to narrate scarcity. Sit, breathe, and remember that spiritual substance is the law, the life, and the activity of all visible forms. You are not trying to manipulate appearances. You are recognizing source, and recognition itself becomes form at the right time, in the right way through right avenues. Giving then is not strategy, it is participation in the nature of the one. You release because the ocean releases. You circulate because life circulates. Do not give to get, that is barter dressed as spirituality. Give because love is your nature and because you refuse to bear false witness to lack. Give as you are led. Sometimes money, sometimes time, sometimes a listening presence, sometimes a quiet no that frees both sides. As you live this way, you notice that the flow does not diminish you. It keeps you fresh. Stagnation is what makes water stale, not generosity. Avoid outlining. The mind says, I must have this amount by that date from this source. Spirit says, rest in me and let the form appear. The habit of outlining is a confession of unbelief in the intelligence of grace. When you are still, you will sense not only that you are provided for, but the precise next step, a call to make, a skill to learn, a door to close, a door to knock on. You may find yourself releasing a possession you once clutched, only to watch a subtler good take its place. Freedom, time, right work, a truer companionship than money could hire. Understand that sufficiency is the signature of the kingdom. Sometimes it looks like overflow, sometimes it looks like a basket that never empties. In either case, the essence is the same: no fear, no pressure, no boasting. You may keep accounts and save wisely, but not as a hedge against a fickle God, rather as the orderly expression of trust. Let budgeting be listening, not tightening. Let purchasing be blessing, not proving. Let earning be service, not self-importance. The sense of me begins to soften into stewardship, and the weight you carried around possessions lifts, because the ownership has shifted back to where it always belonged. The invisible life that clothes the lilies and calls you its own. From that easing of ownership, the heart grows quiet, and in that quiet you discover the doorway called silence. Not a forced muteness or a pious posture, but an inner hush where you are no longer negotiating with life. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the absence of strain. It appears naturally when you let the grasping relax, when you no longer demand that the world prove you safe. In that softening, guidance is not chased. It reveals, like a shoreline appearing as fog lifts. Stillness is how you see, not what you do. It is the uncluttered awareness in which the next right step becomes obvious without argument. Be still and know is not a slogan for wall art, it is spiritual physics. Knowing dawns as stillness deepens. Thoughts may continue like birds crossing a wide sky, but the sky is undisturbed, and you learn to identify as sky. From there, what you need to know rises of itself, less like a trumpet blast, more like the quiet certainty of daybreak. This guidance wears a distinctive aroma: peace without passivity, clarity without push. It does not arrive under the lash of urgency. It does not bargain or frighten. Often it is simple, a nudge to make a call, a hesitation that saves you from an unnecessary yes, a tenderness that withholds a clever remark, a timing that ripens an email into favor. At other times it is spacious, a wordless release of an entire plan that looked brilliant yesterday and hollow today, the relief of being spared a detour you were about to sanctify. Practice by pausing on purpose. Before you reach for the phone in the morning, let 3 conscious breaths find you. Feel the aliveness behind the breath and rest there for a few heartbeats. Whisper inwardly, here I am, and listen. Midday, when momentum swells, set your hands down for 10 seconds and let your attention settle below the noise of the forehead into the quiet I. In conversation, leave a little space before you answer and allow wisdom to fit words to love rather than ego to agenda. Do not confuse mental fireworks with guidance. The mind likes neon, spirit prefers daylight. Adrenaline can masquerade as urgency, guidance is marked by congruence. If you are driven, tight, defensive, wait. If you sense warmth, openness, and a rightness that does not need approval, proceed. Sometimes the clearest direction is no direction at all. A felt permission to stop seeking and to sit, to let the solution come toward you like a boat drifting to shore on a dependable tide. Silence travels well. You can carry it into the train, the kitchen sink, the boardroom. It is not fragile, it does not require ideal conditions. You can be still while the world is loud, because stillness is an altitude, not a location. When the noise increases, deepen the listening, the way you lean closer to a whisper you love. Let the question that rises in pressure be met by the deeper question. What is already true in God here? And let your attention wait until the answer is felt rather than fabricated. As this becomes your habit, you notice fewer corrections and more preventions. Misunderstandings don't escalate because you heard the silence between the words and responded to that. Opportunities come alive on their own clock and meet you at the corner without your sprinting. Ideas arrive whole, not as fragments to be forced together. What looked like delay is revealed as arrangement, what felt like emptiness as spaciousness, and you find yourself less inclined to manage and more willing to witness. You become more willing to witness. You find that witnessing is not passivity but purity of attention. Willing tries to bend life, witnessing lets life reveal itself. Personal will is a clenched fist around outcomes, witnessing is an open hand that trusts the inherent order of the one. In the presence of open attention, or the knotted strands of circumstance begin to loosen by themselves, not because you solved them, but because you stopped tightening them with fear and agenda. The ego thinks results are manufactured by pressure. Spirit shows you that harmony is disclosed by transparency. I can of mine own self do nothing is not defeatist, it is the freedom song of the soul. You agree to be a window, not a painter of skies. Light knows how to illumine, your part is to stay clear. As you rest in that clarity, impulses to act arise without strain, words fit mouths they're meant for, and timing takes on a choreography you could not have arranged by will. Witnessing also changes how you meet discord. Instead of rushing to correct appearances, you remove the personal sense that wants to fix and be credited. Error loses heat when it is not fed by your reactivity. You sit in the felt oneness until the sense of a separate problem, bearer, dissolves, and from that quiet, whether the form fades or the appropriate step presents itself cleanly. This step might look ordinary outwardly, but it carries the sign of grace, ease, sufficiency, rightness without boast. Practice in the small. When an irritation pricks, pause and witness the sensation without a story. When a craving rises, witness it as a wave that crests and falls in the same aware sea. When a plan excites you, witness the excitement, then ask inwardly, is this mine to do, or is there a deeper simplicity here? In witnessing, you are not suppressing, you are seeing. Seeing is releasing, because what is truly seen in the light of presence cannot maintain a false claim of authority. Let your prayers become witnessing. Sit, acknowledge the one presence, and let silence do its subtle surgery. Instead of presenting a list, rest until the sense of I am outshines the catalogue of needs. If an insight comes, fine. If it does not, finer still, you have touched the cause, and the fruit will ripen on its own vine. Trust the unseen interval. Many of the sweetest answers arrive unannounced, as a conversation that unexpectedly reconciles, a payment that arrives at the corner, a diagnosis that softens at the edges of certainty. Personal will often masquerades as responsibility. It whispers that if you do not push, life will collapse. But pushed outcomes rarely carry peace, they require more pushing to maintain. Witnessed outcomes carry their own momentum, you accompany rather than drive them. You will still make calls, send proposals, discipline children, steward money, but the inner posture shifts from forcing to following, from anxiety to availability, from managing God to letting God be God. A helpful touchstone. If you feel tight, breathless, argumentative, step back and witness. If you feel spacious, present, quietly sure, proceed. Where there is presence, there is provision for the step at hand. You are never asked to take a step for which grace has not already prepared support. When you find yourself reaching ahead into imagined futures, return to the immediate now and witness what is actually here, for here is where the kingdom is operational. Here is where the law of harmony is already at work. Over time, witnessing becomes your natural stance. You stop advertising yourself to life and begin to be transparently available to life. Relationships become less about winning and more about revealing love. Work becomes less about proving and more about serving. Prayer becomes less about convincing and more about consenting. The strain drops out, and what remains is an unobstructed current in which you live as a clear pane for the light, content to let the light do the seeing, the guiding, the healing, and the glorifying, while you abide as its quiet transparency through which harmony appears